Hello 108 students, Mr. McHugh back here with you with my Boston Terrier Gizmo. He's going to help me out here this section. He's sitting on my lap here. He wants to see what all the commotion is up here I've been working on here on the computer. So we are going to tackle 6.5 and we are going to solve quadratic equations by factoring. So all this work we've been doing in chapters up to this section in chapter 6, we're going to start to take advantage of it. Now here's some good news. You've been doing some tough problems with factoring. Once they put them into equations, they pick reasonable ones here where you're going to factor them. Okay, so to get this started, we have to go over a concept called the zero factor property. And the zero factor property is this. I like to come down here and illustrate on the board to say I have two sets of parentheses and I multiply 2 times what will produce. Now I'm going to put an arrow here. What times 2 will give you the result of 0, and the answer has to be 0. You have to have a 0 to produce a 0. Okay, and I illustrated around multiplication properties commutative. The order doesn't matter. What if I say what times 2 will give you a 0? Again, think of that result as 0. You have to have a 0 times anything will produce a 0. Okay, so I use these parentheses to emphasize this because this first warm-up problem takes 2 sets of parentheses, they have to be multiplied, and they're already set equal to 0. So thus you have an equation. Okay, now you're only going to see 1 or 2 of these here, but the concept is what is the value of x that will make this equation true? Now what you need to do is realize that inside this first parentheses, here's your first one, here's your second one, you have to take x plus 6. What value of x will make this a 0 in here? Now this one's fairly easy to see. You might realize the answer is -6. -6 plus 6 equals 0. But what we do is we tell ourselves to take each set of parentheses, take the quantity x plus 6 and set it equal to 0, because inside this parentheses you must end up with the quantity of 0. So take it, set it equal to 0, isolate the x -6 on both sides, and lo and behold, what you guys probably saw right off the bat, x equals -6. You put a -6 plus 6, you definitely get 0. Okay, so that's the idea. I like to draw a line. You know, we're used to solving equations one line at a time working vertically. Now you come down to this stage, you see 2 sets of parentheses multiplied equal to 0. Take each parenthesis, set them equal to 0, and solve for x. Over here, now I'm going to add 3 to isolate, so I've got 2x equals 3. Divide both sides by 2, and lo and behold, the second value for x has 2 values now. X equals 3/2 or 1.5, and it also equals -6, because if you put 3/2 in here for x, you multiply it by 2 minus 3, you will get 0. Okay, so that's some warm-up examples here. How are we going to solve these equations? They're quadratic. Let's talk about this here. A quadratic equation is the variable is x. Make sure you know that the x's are your variables. The a, b, and c are constants. So you've got your variable squared and you've got a variable to the first power. So the a, b, and c are constants. So we usually say the standard form for a quadratic equation is a trinomial. Ax squared plus bx plus c is your trinomial, and it's set equal to 0. Okay, now you're finding the roots to these solutions. We get to chapter 9, we're going to talk more about this for now, but let's just go ahead and stay with the beginning introductory concept here of a quadratic equation. I think a quadratic, by the way, I think of 4 terms to help me remember why they call it that. Okay, so here's some steps to work with. If you have a statement, and the key thing here before I forget is you have got the exponent raised to the second power. That is the key. That is your read that tells you it's a quadratic equation. Set the equation in standard form, aka the trinomial is set equal to 0. Okay, once you do that, here's where all that work comes from at the beginning of this chapter. Factor the trinomial and you will get 2 sets of parentheses. So it's going to look like this. One set of parentheses, a second set of parentheses is going to equal 0. Take each set of parentheses, find a value that will make that x or the variable equal to 0, find the values, and then check your solution, mean putting them back in. Okay, so let's go ahead and try here. I squeezed the problem here in the bottom of this page, and this is example 2, and it says 2x squared plus 3x equals 2, and they tell you to solve this. Now, your first big read is, hey, it's x squared. Okay, you cannot combine an x squared and x to the first. They're two separate terms. You need another technique. Technique you want to think about is the trinomial being setting it equal to 0 or getting it into standard form, and you're dealing with a quadratic. So minus 2 on both sides. When you minus 2 on both sides, you get the 0. That's your driver. And so now you've got 2x squared plus 3x minus 2, which is your trinomial, set equal to 0. Now you focus on factoring this trinomial, and I'm going to go through here and tell you that it's 2x minus 1 because the factors for the first term would be 2x and a 1x. Negative 2, it would be a negative 1 and a 2 multiplied together. However, when you do any O and the I, you unlock it, you get negative 1x, you get 4x, you add them up, you get 3x, and that unlocks the safe. You got to make sure you do that right. Now you take each set of parentheses, set them equal to 0. Here's where you branch off, solve for x, and you can see x equals a half, x equals 2, negative 2. If you put a negative 2 back into here, what would you get? Negative 2 plus 2 equals 0. Same thing up here. You put a half in, 2 times a half is 1, 1 minus 1 does equal 0. Okay, there we go. We finished page 1. We'll go ahead and check that off. We're on our way, so I will see you for page 2, okay, class? So welcome to quadratic equations and using factoring. Okay, I'll see you later. Bye.